This document describes in details what is their plan, means the Muslim Brotherhood plan for America, North America, how to Islamize this country. It can take 10 years, 100 years, doesn't matter, because there is a verse in the Quran which says, "In illa Allah ma'a sabirin." Allah is with those who have patience, and they do have a lot of patience. And here comes, I think, the source of Jew hatred, the biggest of today, which comes from the Arab and the Islamic world, through the media and through other things. And here we have to understand the mindset of Muslims when they see the state of Israel, regardless of its size, even before the occupation of 1967. I'm talking the occupation of 1948, how they look at us. And this is I would say, what characterizes the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood, which is the Beit Midrash of the radical Islamism as we see today. And there are many others, but this is the problem, so I'll talk about this. Those who think like the Muslim Brotherhood see Israel, the state of Israel, as something which has absolutely no right to exist as a state. And the question is why? The explanation is like some layer cake. The most basic reason is their belief that Judaism is null and void. Is in Arabic, Din Batil. Din is religion, Batil is Batel, Mevutal, cancelled. Why? Judaism was cancelled 2,000 years ago by Christianity, and Christianity was cancelled 14 centuries ago by Islam. So Judaism was cancelled twice. Once it was replaced by Christianity, and second time is by Islam. So since Judaism is null and void, why do we need a Jewish state if there is no Jewish religion? Okay, so this is the first layer, the most basic. On this, there is another layer about the land, Eretz Israel. In their view, Eretz Israel entirely is an Islamic land. Islamic land, why? It once was under Islamic rule. Between 628, when Eretz Israel was first occupied by Islam, until 1917, until the First World War. So, for like 13 centuries, Eretz Israel was under Islamic rule, and forever Israel should remain because, according to their belief, according to the Sharia, any land in the world has only one-way ticket, to enter the house of Islam, not to get out. Therefore, by the way, Spain and Portugal, the Iberian Peninsula, should return to be Islamic, because once it was under Islamic rule, between 711 and the end of the Reconquista, and the end of the 15th century. Okay? It was Islamic, and so it should remain forever. The island of Sicily, southern Italy, was under Islamic rule for a while. It should remain under Islamic forever. Large parts of the Balkans, Greece, what today Serbia, Montenegro, Croatia, all the way to the gates of Vienna, capital of Austria, when they were defeated, when the Ottomans were defeated for the first time in September 11, 1683. Now you know why September 11 was chosen in 2001, in order to take revenge on their defeat on September 11, 1683. Bin Laden talked about this. So obviously the reason for the choosing of that date. So is Eretz Israel should remain under Islamic rule. Who in the world has the permission to take an Islamic land and to give it to Jews? What? Lord Balfour, the evangelical Minister of Foreign Affairs of the British government? Who gave him this land to promise it? Means the Balfour Declaration to give it to the Jews? What? Did it belong to his father, to his mother? It belongs to us. They took it illegally from the Ottoman Empire. And now, and they say in Arabic, man la yamlik ataha liman la yastahiq. One who did not own it gave it to those who do not deserve it, Jews. Okay? So, and later, after 1917, San Remo Convention of the League of Nations, which took the Balfour Declaration, which was a letter sent by Balfour to the Zionist movement in Britain. They took this letter and they turned it into a binding, until this very day, a binding legal document of the international community of those days, embodied by the League of Nations. By the way, the United Nations, in its Article 80 of the Charter, adopted all the decisions of the League of Nations, including the San Remo decision, to give the Jewish people the land of Israel. So legally, according to the Charter of the United Nations, the land from the river to the sea belongs to the Jewish people. Okay? And this is not the Bible. It's the legal basis of modern life in the world. So who voted? Japan, Russia, Argentina. Who the heck gave them this land to vote, to give it to the Jews? Japan owns the land of Israel to give it to the Jews? So when Muslims see all these things, they say, who the heck gave those peoples or nations the permission to give it to the Jews? It belongs to us. So this is the second problem, the land, which is Islamic. Third problem, which they view us, is that Jews are not a nation. Jews are communities which belong to all the nations in the world. For example, a Jew in Canada is a Canadian citizen who happened to be Jewish, just like other Canadian citizens who are Christians or Muslims or whatever they are. He's Canadian. A Jew in Morocco is a Moroccan Arab who happened to be Jewish, just like other Moroccan Arabs who are Muslims. A Jew in Yemen is a Yemenite Arab who happened to be Jewish and so forth. A Jew in Russia is a Russian national who happened to be Jewish, just like other Russians who are Christians or Muslims. So there is no Jewish nation. There are Jewish communities who, they look different, they sound different, they speak different languages, they eat different food, they wear different clothing, they dance to different music, they speak different languages. Since when they are one nation? Religion does not make a nation. Why? Islam. There are many nations in Islam. There are Arabs, there are Persians, Kurdish, Turkish, Luchis, Zakhis, Uzbekis, Tajikis, many. So what? Made them all one nation? Not at all. These are Arabs, these are Persians. Same as Christianity. There are many Christians in the world. In Korea, in Norway, in Canada, in South America, in Africa. So what? Christianity made them all into one nation? No. This is Korean, this is African. So why should Judaism galvanize the Russian and the Yemenite and the Iraqi and the Moroccan and the Canadian to be one nation? Since when a religion makes a nation? Okay? So they actually project their situation on us. Therefore, they don't accept the idea that there is a Jewish nation, because Judaism is a religion. It's not a nationhood. Okay, so if there is no Jewish nation, why do they need a state? Another problem, in their view, is that anyway, Jews, according to the Islamic Sharia, should live under the Islamic protection as dhimmis. And here I must recommend to read a very important book which was written about this by Bat Ye'or. Bat Ye'or is the pen name of a Jewish lady named Giselle Littman, lives near Lausanne in Switzerland. She was born in Alexandria of Egypt. That's why she called herself Bat Ye'or, the daughter of the Nile. And every year, I'm telling you, I'm fully jealous. Every year she writes a new book about something in Islam, and all her books are based on Islamic sources. She reads Arabic, of course. And many researchers base on her book, their views and researches. So she wrote once a book, I think the title is Islam and Dhimmitude. Dhimmitude means the status of dhimmis. Dhimmis are those who live under the yoke of Islam, like Jews and Christians. They are tolerated religiously, but have to live in maskana. Maskana in Arabic, like in Hebrew, miskenut, in poor situation under Islam. For example, a Jew, when he walks in the street, he should be marked with yellow patch. This was not created by the Nazis in the 30s. This was created, this idea, in Baghdad of the 9th century, in the days of the Abbasid dynasty, Islamic Abbasid dynasty, 9th century CE. Christians should be marked with purple, parallel to the yellow in Jude. Why? Because both Jews and Christians are impure. And therefore, Muslims should refrain from touching them when they are walking in the street. So this is why they have to be marked. The Nazis took it from the Muslims in Baghdad of the 9th century. A Jew and a Christian should walk in the middle of the street while the Muslims on the side. Why? In the middle of the street, there's the sewer. In those days, in the Middle Ages, they didn't have sewage system under the city. Everything which came out from the households was in the street. And not only from the kitchens. Everything was in the street. So the Jew and the Christian have to walk in the sewage canal, okay, in order to denigrate them, because they are holding to their wrong religion. A Jew and a Christian should pay the jizya. Jizya is the head tax every month. And it states in the Quran, right? It said in the Quran that the Jew and Christian, when they pay, they should pay the jizya from their hand while they are humiliated. Stated in the Quran. So, in order to implement it literally, in many cases, in many places, many times, when the Jew and the Christian came to the tax collector to pay the jizya, they were forced to crawl on the ground, give the money from their hand, as it said in the Quran, get kicked and run out of the room in order to implement wahum sarirun, while they are humiliated, as it said in the Quran. So this is another thing. A Jew and a Christian are not allowed to ride a horse, only a donkey, to belittle them. The Jewish home and the Christian home should be lower than the Muslim home. And of course, the synagogue and the church should be lower than the mosque in order to show who is superior and who is inferior. And many, many more halachot or rules under which Jews were allowed to live in Islamic countries. In Yemen, they had a rule that any orphan, Jew boy or a girl, should be given to the imam, means to the Muslim authorities, in order to Islamize him or her. In many other cases, other things, I will elaborate on this. So this is how Jews should live under the yoke of Islam. Now, as a result, from the fact that Jewish religion is null and void, the land belongs to Islam, Jews are not a nation, and anyway, they have to live under the yoke of Islam. The bottom line of all these things is that the state of Israel as a statehood or Jewish statehood has absolutely no justification, because Jews should live under the rule of Islam. So the state of Israel actually is a religious challenge which they cannot accept. For them, it looks like a religious threat on Islam. Why? Because all these things, the fact that Israel has land, that Israel is an army, has a police, has a government, sovereignty, okay, recognized by the world, it means, in their view, that Judaism came back to life in the form of a state, army, police, ministries, sovereignty, land. The Judaism actually went through, since the end of the 19th century, with the Aliyot and everything which happened in Eretz Israel, is that Judaism actually went through a process of resurrection after it was cancelled twice by Christianity and by Islam. They cannot take it. It creates some kind of a short in their mind. Kurzschluss, as they say in German. You know, it can't happen. It cannot be that Judaism came back to life. And not only this, Judaism came back to life by a conspiracy of Judaism and Christianity. Means Balfour, the evangelical, since 1917, all the way to Trump, who is supported by the evangelicals who moved the embassy of the United States from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Who the heck gave him Jerusalem? It is holy to Islam. So the state of Israel, actually, in their view, since it is a challenge, religious challenge, because it is some kind of something which is totally against Islam, against all these views of Islam to Israel and the Jews, they cannot accept such a thing. And this situation deserves jihad, a religious war, in order to save Islam from the resurrection of Judaism, which is supported by Christianity, Balfour and after. This is today the main cause of Jew hatred in the Islamic world. The problem is that this hatred migrates with masses of Muslims to the Western world. What you see today in France, you see it in Germany, Belgium, Holland, I believe in this country as well. When they come from wherever they come from, they bring the emotions, they bring the concepts, they bring the beliefs vis-a-vis Israel, which were there, now they are here. And today we are talking about the meeting of the red and green hatred or Jew hatred. Means red, the communist, the green, the Islamist. And this is what we see today on the background of the fact that the state of Israel, at least for in the Islamic world, is a theological problem before it is anything else. By the way, the Vatican has more or less the same problem with Israel. The first time which the Vatican started to recognize Israel was in the 60s, like 15 or more years after the state was established. And the first visit of the Pope in Israel, he asked to erase the symbol of the Israeli train from the cars of the train because it looks like Magen David. He didn't like it at all. So unfortunately, Israel was forced to erase in order to enable him to come to Eretz Israel. So, yes, the Catholic Church has also some theological problems with the existence of the State of Israel, parallel to the Islamic rejectionism of the State of Israel in what we see today. Ladies and gentlemen, the State of Israel was supposed maybe to solve the Jewish problem, but what we see that the existence of the state of the Jews actually worsened the situation, especially when this state struggles to survive, as we see during the last 2 years. The demonstrations against Israel, and implicitly, if not explicitly also, against Jews wherever they are and whoever they are, and as we see in campuses, erupted on the 8th of October, one day after the attack on us, which took the lives of 1,200 Israelis who were killed, butchered, burnt, and raped. And I must commend here what Rabbi Dan made outside. I saw the memorial to that to the atrocity. Highly appreciated. When Israel has some attack like this, we would expect that the civilized world at least will sympathize with us, with what happened with the victims of what happened in Gaza. But what, this sympathy passed after what? 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and turned into demonstrations against Israel only because Israel defends itself against vicious people who are hiding behind their wives and children as they do in Gaza. So, yes, we are in some kind, I wouldn't say quagmire, but I would say problem that the more Israel proves to the others that that the state of Israel is there to stay, the more Jew hatred it creates today in many other places, including here. A state which should have solved the Jewish problem apparently doesn't solve it, because this is what we see. Could be that the reason is the second reason which I talked about, the mere existence of Jews within others. And yes, maybe if Jewish people did not live in Vancouver, maybe the people in Vancouver didn't have whom to hate, but it's not sure. Why? Right after the conference in D.C., when I came back to Israel, I went again with my mother, my late mother, and my sister to Poland to visit my mother's birthplace in Brzezin, near Lodz, and my father's also in Radom, southern Poland. And in Lodz, there is no Jew for who knows how many decades. Not even one Jew lives in Lodz. But wherever you go in Lodz, you see hanging bar. How do you see it? Amud Tliya. Okay, you see. And the loop is in the shape of Magen David. The loop is in the shape of Magen David. You see it in the streets. It's Jew hatred without Jews. So to say that if Jews leave exile and all will go to Eretz Israel, this will solve the problem of Jew hatred, I'm not sure. Because what you see in Lodz is definitely Jew hatred without Jews. Okay? So there are people who describe anti-Jewish sentiment or Jew hatred as some kind of a disease, which is very hard to be cured. Maybe it is correct. Thank you so much.
The question to you has to do with the sale of F-5s to Saudi Arabia by President Trump. How do you see that changing the balance of power and the threat to Israel, not today, but down the road, should there be regime change in Saudi Arabia and a movement that is not compatible?
Well, these are two different questions. 35 in Saudi hands, frankly, I'm not afraid, because the Saudis are, let's say, a leading country in the Islamic world, no doubt. They have much money, no doubt. But as fighters, as combatants, they are rather lousy. Seriously. They fought against the Houthis 8 long years, and the Houthis just slaughtered them whenever they liked. The Saudi, I'll give you a good example. The Saudis once sent a whole infantry brigade to Yemen to fight the Houthis, and they were walking, all this brigade was marching in a valley leading to Yemen, because they have shared borders, you know. The Yemenite means the Houthis knew that they are coming, so they were waiting for them in the hills overlooking this valley. And when this brigade marched into this place where the Houthis were, they started to shoot at them from 1 minute, and they just killed them all. This is stupidity. This is not the way how to run an army. They have absolutely no knowledge of how to run an army. Another thing about Saudi Arabia, you might remember what happened in October 2018. They wanted to get rid of Khashoggi. Remember, in the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. You remember this case where the Turks took pictures of everything, and I collected all the information about this event, and I analyzed it from the intelligence point of view. They committed more or less 40 mistakes, at least 40 mistakes. You want to get rid of somebody, there are ways how to do it, if you really want to do it, in a way which will not incriminate you. But they did every possible mistake. That's why the whole world knows that who did it and what and they were actually described by the Biden administration as a rogue state almost. Okay, so I'm not afraid of the Saudis when it comes to airplanes. They will mess these airplanes as well. This one thing. Second, about regime change. Regime change in Saudi Arabia is very hard because Saudi Arabia is actually based on the ruling family. And the ruling family in Saudi Arabia today is thousands of people. Because the founding father, Abdulaziz ibn Saud, the father of King Salman of today, the state is run by his son, Muhammad bin Salman, but the king is still alive. So MBS, Muhammad bin Salman, is only the crown prince. But his grandfather was the one who founded the kingdom, Abdulaziz ibn Saud. The man had some 50. You know why he could have so many? They didn't use credit cards those years, so he could have 50 wives. So imagine that every one of those is giving birth every year. So imagine how many children he had. And this is actually the ruling family, okay? So these are very big family and so far consolidated. So I don't see a regime change in Saudi Arabia. However, what I can see is the fact that the MBS, at least the way he started his being the crown prince, it was very negative because of various reasons. First of all, why should he succeed his father? Because so far the kings were brothers of each other. He would be the first to delegate the kingdom to the third generation, to the grandchildren of the founding father. Why should he be first? There are sons of the former kings who are older than him, much more experienced than him, and much more normal in their behavior. The man didn't do anything until he became the crown prince. What he did is collecting yachts and the Porsche cars, okay? And they did something for the state. But his father decided, and so far he's the crown prince. And whether he will be the king after his father dies, I'm not sure. We all also remember how he captured many of his cousins in the 1,000-star prison in Riyadh. What's the 1,000-star prison? The Ritz-Carlton Hotel. He imprisoned some dozens of his cousins, means princes who happen to be billionaires as well. He imprisoned them in this hotel, and whoever wanted to go out had to pay ransom. Okay? And two of them who refused to go to this jail, in some miraculous way, found their end of life in those days.
We don't want anybody to feel imprisoned here, so I'm going to move us on to the next couple of questions.
So what I'm saying is that if Muhammad bin Salman at the end of the day will not be the next king, don't be surprised.
I have a quick question about Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states. I recently heard that the crown prince said that some hadith are not necessarily true. Is what I thought I heard correct? And if so, would that be an indication of a reformation of Islam? And in the Gulf countries, how do they reconcile jihad with their peace with Israel? Are they ignoring it, or have they come to some resolution around those issues?
Well, these questions definitely deserve a whole lecture. But in order to answer, 12 centuries ago, the hadith was actually registered, means written. Until then, it was by heart. And the 9 scholars who registered the hadith, left some 95% of the hadith which they knew out. Why? Suspected to be lie. or to be invented, or to be concocted. Since the hadith was by heart for 200 years, everybody could invent, and many hadiths were already then. So 12 centuries ago, already then, Muslims claimed that large parts of the hadith are forged. So the fact that somebody comes today and say it again, it's no chidush. It's Muslims claim it for over 1,000 years, that significant parts of their oral tradition is forged. So there's nothing new in this. And the other question about the Gulf states, yes, very important question. Yes, not all the Muslims share this layer picture with in the Gulf, for example, Abu Dhabi, for example, they kind of Islamic view is live and let live, means mind your own business. Look at yourself, look at your behavior. Are you loyal to Allah? Are you performing the mitzvot? This is what you should be concerned about yourself. Leave the others alone. To a degree, as I told you, one of the rules of Islam is that the Jewish home or the Jewish synagogue should be lower than the church, and the synagogue and the church should be lower than the mosque. In Abu Dhabi, they built the Abrahamic compound, 3 magnificent buildings made of concrete and wood only. One is a church, one is a mosque, and one is a synagogue. And the synagogue has also Beit Midrash and a mikveh to that degree. All of them the same height, the same width, the same length, the same exactly to the millimeter, the same size, especially the same height. What, doesn't know the Sharia that the mosque should be higher than others? Of course he knows, but he says, I don't follow this rule. Okay? Not only this, as you know, Judaism and Christianity are tolerated in Islam because they are not idol-worshipping religions. Hinduism, Shintoism, Buddhism, Confucianism are all idol-worshipping religions, which in Islam should be demolished. Okay? In Abu Dhabi, there are many people from India who happen to be Hindus. And one of the advisors of the founding father, the Sheikh Zayed, was one of them, an Indian guy, very bright guy. So one time, the Sheikh Zayed asked him, where do you gather, for your festives? So he said, we don't have any place because it's not forbidden. It's forbidden in Islam. So he said, what do you mean? You should have a place. So he said, but we don't have land. So yeah, okay, I'll give you land for my own. So he gave them a piece of land from his own land. After a while, he asked him, what did you do with this land? So he told him, we did nothing because we don't have the money to build. So he says, go build and send me the bill. Means the founding father of the Emirates, not only that he didn't destroy Beit Avodah Zarah, idol worshipping, he financed a Beit Avodah Zarah on his own land. Okay? This is the man. And he was religious Muslim, buried in the big mosque which was built on his name, and 24/7 there are people there who are citing the Quran on his soul. When I visited there, I said the Fatiha on his name, means the Kaddish, the Islamic Kaddish. They were rather satisfied to see a Jew saying it.
Doctor, thank you. Earlier in your presentation, you mentioned the Red-Green Alliance, which is the relationship between communists and Islam. And recently there's been talk of the Muslim Brotherhood being the Trojan horse, entering into overt North American politics and also covert institutions within North America to do probably a lot of damage. And we all know that they're extremely focused on Jew hatred, to use your term. Would you like to comment on that?
Definitely. First of all, I highly recommend, if you Google, please write it down. Google IPT, investigating in terrorism, IPT. This is an organization in DC. Explanatory Memorandum. Google these 3 things together, IPT, Explanatory Memorandum. You'll find a document written by the Muslim Brotherhood representation in Florida in May 1991, means 34 or less years ago. This document was found by the American authorities in the framework of the investigation against an organization named Holy Land Foundation. Holy Land Foundation, although it sounds like Christian, is it belongs to the Muslim Brotherhood here, means in the United States, and supported Hamas. And since Hamas is defined as a terror organization, whoever sponsors Hamas is also not a nice person. So they searched one of the homes in Florida, which belonged to one of those people, and they found this document. This document, which I highly recommend to download and to read, it is PDF, you can download it for free, is 16 pages in Arabic and 16 pages official translation in English. So if you don't master Arabic yet, you can read it in English as of page 17 until the end. This document describes in details what is the plan, means the Muslim Brotherhood plan for America, North America, how to Islamize this country. It can take 10 years, 100 years, doesn't matter, because there is a verse in the Quran which says, "In illa Allah ma'asabirin." Allah is with those who have patience, and they do have a lot of patience. So they show how they are going to be immersed into the American society, including Canada, in order to convert it to Islam at some point. In the last page of this document, page number 16, it mentions the list of organizations which are actually on the ground operating in order to implement this plan, how to convert America to Islam. One of them, for example, is MSA, Muslim Student Association, an organization on campuses, I think here as well, which actually is the herald of anti-Jewish activity, anti-Israel, anti-Zionist, and implicitly, if not only explicitly, Jew-hatred organization, MSA, run by the Muslim Brotherhood, sponsored by Qatar. Okay, Qatar. Now, 3 of these organizations, which are mentioned in that list, united a few years later and created CARE, Committee on American Islamic Relations. So CARE is also in this list by the names of the 3 organizations which made CARE, okay? Although CARE by name doesn't appear, it's like the maiden names of is there. So this is what everybody, in my view, should learn by heart, because this is the wake-up call to anyone on this continent.
Dr. Kedar, you alluded to Balfour and San Remo, so going back to that period for more than 100 years now, the British arbitrarily gave roughly 78% of the land that was part of the Palestine Mandate to create Transjordan. The Hashemites came in. Of course, they're not indigenous to that area. And from what I understand, maybe as much as 95% of the people there, if there are in fact a Palestinian people, those people are roughly 95% of the inhabitants of that land. And yet we never hear anything when people talk about two-state solution. We never hear about, even from Israelis, even on the right, not so much, about, well, they have their land, it's just a different name, but it is Palestine. And I'm trying to understand why we don't hear more about it and what your thoughts are about that.
You know, the first rule in maintenance engineering is, if something works, don't fix it. Are you familiar with this? Right. The kingdom of Jordan still works. So nobody really wants to start re-engineering Jordan to be something else, only to save Israel as a Jewish state. Okay? So as long as Jordan is functioning as a kingdom under the Hashemite family, who were actually kicked away from Mecca, and they were given a job to rule Jordan in 1924, nobody in the world wants to touch this kingdom as long as it works well so far. Yes, you're right that the majority of the people in this kingdom are Palestinians, but the world is not impressed by this. The world doesn't want to change anything in Jordan as long as it works. I destroy something which works. So this is more or less, I think, answers your question.
We're going to take the last question here, but Dr. Kedar is going to hang around for an oneg afterwards.
Thank you for coming tonight. Something I'm interested in is sort of this inconsistency in maybe in Islamic thought, and it goes back to the Quran itself, which I'm not an expert in, I've never read. But one of the things that I've been watching is sort of debates where a Jew and a Muslim basically talk about the scripture itself, and it says that in the Quran that Israel is mentioned many times, and it's also mentioned as a place for the Jews. And I'm wondering if that's true, and that sort of also ties into the sort of the Abraham Accords. If it is true that in Islam it says that the land is for the Jewish people. And then in modern times now, some of these countries are saying, yes, we acknowledge you and we will work with you.
Yeah.
And others are saying, no. What is the truth? Like, what's true and what's not true?
Well, there is a verse in the Quran which says that Allah says to Bani Israel, means the sons of Israel, my people, enter my holy country which I subscribed for you. Great, right? Allah tells us to go to his holy land which he subscribed for us. Yes, but the next verse says that the Israelites refused because there were giant people in the land, and first they told Allah, first get rid of those and then we'll go in. Means they didn't rely on him. Actually, this is Parashat Shlach, the Parashat of the Meraglim, of the spies, who, frightened the people because of the Anshe Midot, people with large measurements, at least that's how they describe them, were frightening them. Means the meaning is that the Israelites did not rely on Allah. And this is why Allah got angry at them, and he threw them to the desert for 38 more years to wander in the desert. So exactly what the Parshat Shlach tells us, and this is actually what you mean by oh, my people come into my holy land, which I subscribed for you. The pasuk is very nice, but the context is not flattering to the Israelites. So this is one thing. Secondly, in Islam, or in the Islamic sources, there is a very clear definition or division between the Israelites and the Jews. For us, it's more or less the same, because Jews are from Judea, means the Yehuda, the tribe of Yehuda, which is part of Am Israel, one tribe. Okay, so it's more or less synonym. In the in the Islamic discourse, Banu Israel is an ancient nation which disappeared, just like the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Phoenicians, the ancient Egyptians, and so the Israelites. What you see today, the Jews, actual people whom we see, are all descendants of the Khuzaris who converted to Judaism in the 16th century. Means there is no connection between the Israelites, which are mentioned in the Quran in many times, and the Jews of today, the actual people which you can see and feel. See me? No, this is the concept in Islam. This is the Islamic concept. Just like there is no connection between the Babylonians and the Iraqis of today, no connection between the Assyrians and the Syrians of today, or the Phoenicians and the Lebanese of today, or the pharaohs and ancient Egypt and the Egyptians of today. The same thing is between the Israelites and the Jews of today. No connection. They claim, we claim that we are descendants of the Israelites. They don't accept it. This is why, if this land of Israel was the land of the Israelites, so what? Anyway, there is no connection between the Jews of today and the Israelites of yore. If what? You can ask even worse. Yemenite Jews, which, the Yemenite community, actually, the roots are from the days of Solomon, King Solomon, who started to send people from Judea to that part of the world, to manage the trade between Yehuda and Shva, the kingdom. Yes, but, in many cases, you can see that they have a very strict rule in the Islamic world. Don't mix my theories with facts.